Hey everyone, welcome back to Life Unpotted. This is Sophie here, joined by Daisy. We are excited to have a conversation. As always, if you are new to this podcast, Life Unpotted is a space where we discuss thoughts, emotions, this existence of being a human being and not really understanding why are we here, what are we doing, what is all this craziness? Why are things so complicated? Why are things so hard? How can we learn to better enjoy life? And the reality of it is, it's easy when you're listening to a podcast to think that the people talking have it all figured out. If you have been listening to this podcast, you know that Daisy and I don't have it anywhere near figured out. We come up here and we talk about the things that we're going through. We share the experiences that we're going through in real time. And this is really important to mention because in my journey of trying to deepen my understanding of myself and to deepen my understanding in I want to improve myself. I want to grow. I want to get to a point where I am healed. I want to get to a point where I am more complete. When we venture into the self-help, the self-improvement, the healing journey, whatever you want to call it, there's a line I think we teeter, or at least I have teetered, of looking to other people for the answers, thinking that there's people out there who are perfect. There's people out there who don't go through the everyday insecurities and existential dread of being alive. There's people out there who wake up and they feel great all the time. And to start out this episode, I wanted to read a quote from Alan Watts' book I picked up at a yoga studio when we were traveling in San Diego recently. It's called This Is It. And I think that this quote kind of summarizes this point that I'm trying to speak about. People appear to be under the fixed impression that one speaks or writes of these things in order to improve them or do them some good, assuming too that the speaker has himself been improved and is able to speak with authority. In other words, the philosopher is forced into the role of preacher and in turn is expected to practice what he preaches. Thereupon, the truth of what he says is tested by his character and his morals, whether he shows anxiety or not, whether he depends on material crutches, such as wine or tobacco, whether he has stomach ulcers or likes money, whether he loses his temper, gets depressed, or falls in love when he shouldn't, or sometimes looks a bit tired and frayed at the edges. All of these criteria might be valid if the philosopher were preaching freedom from being human, or if he were trying to make himself or others radically better. And I just thought this quote, especially the last line, if the philosopher were preaching freedom from being human, is so impactful because we can't escape the fact that we are human. We can't escape it. We can try, we can do everything that we want to try to reach a level of perfection, reach a level of, I made it, I reached enlightenment, I am perfect. I will never feel the pain again. I will never feel the fear again. But I just don't really personally think that is the case. I don't think there is ever a point we get to beyond right now. And honestly, if we did reach a point where we weren't feeling these things, kind of sounds like a really dull life. So I wanted to just open up the podcast with that because Daisy and I have been talking about this a lot, building this podcast, building this community, and recognizing the natural tendency of our minds to create ideas of people and to think that, they have it figured out. And I think it's scary when you realize that everyone is on the same page as you, but it's also incredibly freeing.
I think that is a really great quote. I think this topic is really interesting of realizing that no one has the answers. No one can fix you. No one can fully help you. Ultimately, it's you who can do that. It's only you. And when I think about my life in the past, all my life, and how I think about early on, it's like, oh, doing this diet is the answer. getting this clothing item is the answer, all the way to reading this book is the answer, doing this workout is the answer, buying this type of vegan diet is the answer. I think the plague of being human is always looking for a solve for our human condition. And I think we get really creative with looking for answers to what will fix us, what will solve everything, and what will make all of our problems go away. Like, that is the object of selling so much, of consuming so much, is that this will fix me. And I think that's important to say because it's just true. If you think that people know they have the answers within themselves, then look at like our culture and look at how much debt we're in, how much money we spend because we're looking to find the answer. And I think back to times in my life where I went through the self-help phase. It's like in these industries, it feels like you always think that someone knows more than you. The author of this book knows more than you because look where they're at. And you're basing it off of where you're at. If you are at this place where you're super unhappy with your life or you're just suffering because life's hard and you think that's unique to you, you think there's a way out, you think that there's a staircase that takes you to a place where all of a sudden everything is just fine all the time and everything is good. I mean, that's not to say that your life can get more full, more interesting, more aligned, but it's like we all are plagued with existential crisis at the end of the day, and that just manifests into different things. But if there is a truth, the irony of it is that only you can find it within yourself. You can't find it through a book. You can't find it through a YouTube channel. You can't find it through these things that take your attention outside of yourself and put it onto something else. Because just the answer is sitting with yourself. And the answer might not even actually exist. In my opinion, it's just taking accountability and realizing that there is nowhere to get. There is just changing your relationship to your thoughts and your experiences. And that in turn changes your response. And it's like once you're able to recognize that, I just think a lot of doors open up for you because your mind expands, your inner life expands, because you're no longer looking to anyone else.
Another quote in the book that I resonated with, and I resonated a lot with what you're saying too, Daisy, is, and I love Alan Watts' reference to music. He really does a great job in referencing nature and referencing music and comparing and contrasting the stark differences between the way humans live life to kind of make it clear and how we try to really, we are the ones who create a lot of our suffering. He says, are the processes of nature as we see them both in the surrounding world and in the involuntary aspects of our own organisms are much more like art than business, politics, or religion. They are especially like the arts of music and dancing, which unfold themselves without aiming at future destinations. No one imagines that a symphony is supposed to improve in quality as it goes along, or that the whole object of playing is to reach the finale. The point of music is discovered in every moment of playing and listening to it. It is the same, I feel, with the greater part of our lives. And if we are unduly absorbed in improving them, we may forget altogether to live them. The musician whose chief concern is to make every performance better than the last may so fail to participate and delight in his own music that he will impress his audience only with the anxious rigor of his technique. And just beautiful what he writes. And just want to know, Alan Watts struggled with alcoholism. I forgot exactly how he passed away, but just I love reading his work because he was never he tried to laugh basically at existence and how we go in circles and we try to find a purpose to life other than just being in it. And it is so easy to, especially when we're healing, especially when we're doing this work. Because look, it is possible in my experience to enjoy life more. It is. I am not the same that I was a few years ago. I really feel I have more meaningful interactions, more meaningful connections. I am more immersed in the moment, in nature, in this existence. But with that all being said, it's still important for me to just get involved in life, to get caught up, to allow myself to get caught up in it, to have fun, to lose myself to the experience. Because if we're so caught up in trying to improve, we really do forget to live.
Well, this first of all makes me think of the danger of someone who becomes a teacher for you, for it could be improving your life in any form, if they are on a pedestal. There's such a danger with that. And obviously my mind goes to something like religion, where it's like you start to think of someone as they can do no wrong. And I think that I've really always thought that any authority figure I've learned from, obviously not any and all, but there has been authority figures that were teachers where we're taught to believe that they are above us. I mean, think of the education system and having a teacher and you can't disrespect your teacher, you can't challenge your teacher. And I just think that it's so refreshing of Alan Watts to make fun of himself, because wouldn't you rather learn from someone who doesn't take themselves so seriously? But I just really see the dangers of what it means to be someone who is on a high horse of thinking what I have is going to fix you and it's going to make you better. And there's just messages in our society of that, especially within a spiritual side of things, is that people can put themselves as, I know more than you, I have the answers, because I've seen something that you haven't, because I'm higher than you. And it's funny that in itself can exist. And then there's Alan Watts spitting facts left and right. You're yeah, right. That makes a lot of sense. Unless it's your first time reading him and you're wait, what? I have to make a second brain for this. But it makes me think of I feel like my dad used to always say this of do as I say, not as I do. And it's almost how can you expect anyone to not be touched by life? And as soon as we expect someone to not be touched by life or slapped by life, we put them into this non-human form. And it's every human is fallible, is going to struggle with things. Even if you conceptually have things figured out, of course you're going to struggle to apply them all the time in every moment. And I think that's so refreshing when Alan Watts is very clear with that, because for not one second do you think that he can solve your problems. It's always very clear. And maybe it's not because it's always in the eye of the listener. I've also been the person who is looking to other people for answers, thinking that just because someone seemingly, quote unquote, is ahead of me in understanding self-awareness and overall awareness, it's easy to think that they have more answers than me. And that's a strong desire to want. Someone could tell you I have no answers, but you still decide to believe this person has the answers, because that's a strong conditioning we have until you hit a wall and you realize it's only you who has the answers. And I think it takes thinking someone else has the answers to get there.
Until you see somebody that maybe you idolize go through the human experience. That's what it is. Because it's so interesting, through this journey of trying to not react to things, not get caught up in things, not believe our thoughts, it's really easy to think that it's possible to exist in that state all the time. And look, I definitely do exist in that state more than I ever did. But it doesn't mean that I don't get triggered, or I don't get really frustrated by things, or I don't feel angry or really upset or hopeless or abandoned or just over it, just over this existence. Yeah, I feel that way sometimes for sure. Who wouldn't? Who doesn't? And with all this to be said, the point is so that you can empower yourself. When I reflect on the way that I used to have relationships really with the outer world. The way I look to people on social media and would compare myself so much and would feel so behind in life, which would lead to me acting out of anxiety and out of urgency and always trying to get to somewhere else, especially when it came to creating this podcast and creating content. Every time I would open social media, I'd feel so anxious because I would see one post from somebody and all of a sudden I'd think subconsciously like it would happen like this, where my mind would then create a story that I'm behind. It's like this constant feeling that would come up for me of I'm behind, I'm behind, I'm behind. And it's like, but you do realize like we're just in eternity already. Like we're just in this moment for that's going to repeat over and over and over and over and over again. And the sense of relief that you're striving for is always available now. But when we correlate that sense of relief to somebody else, or we create a measurement tool of assessing ourselves relative to others or relatives to, I felt this so often when I was thinking about, I want to write a book, or I want to write this, or having a podcast, or doing all these things, like, but this person already does it that way. Since when have we gotten so caught up constantly comparing ourselves to other people that when I've been reflecting on why it's so hard for me to spend time truly alone, off my phone, not interacting with anybody else, just with myself on a walk, with myself sitting on the couch or doing yoga, is because I have been so terribly insecure that I couldn't look to myself. I never knew that I could look to myself for a sense of ease. I always thought that that sense of ease had to come from outside of me. Or if I call this friend, they're going to know. But what changes is not that we have to isolate ourselves. It's that those relationships become much more meaningful because they're no longer rooted out of need. I'm no longer looking to you to solve anything. I'm no longer looking to you to reflect back anything to me. I am showing up as my individual person. I am showing up with a much deeper connection to myself. And I am then able to look to you for nothing more than a real connection, which makes me really think about how many connections I've had in life were not actually genuine connections, but rather just a vehicle for me to feel better. And that's not black and white. Look, sometimes people really are there for us, in my experience. But when it comes at a detriment of getting in the way of yourself looking to you, we can get stuck in a cycle of never really knowing how to come back to ourselves.
Well, I think you just brought in this topic from, okay, teachers who have something to teach us and how we can't look to them too much for the answers because we have the answers. But I like where you just took it, or it made me think of at least what the experience of like working for an employer and starting at a new job where someone else does have the answers for a period of time where you're onboarding or you're learning the things. And it's almost like I never trusted myself when working for someone, or back to school. I never trusted that my idea was right, or just generally in life. It's so easy to think that someone else's idea is better, more liked, more likely to be correct, because we're so used to not trusting ourselves. Like that's how deep it runs, is that we don't trust ourselves. And like clearly that is like the thread of like the depth of this conversation. It's like, right, we can't look to someone else for the answers, but it's like, why do we have such a tendency to look to someone else for the answers? Why do we have such a tendency to put our opinion or our experience or our intuition last? Why is that normalized? Why do we believe that what we think has to be wrong if someone else disagrees? And I guess my thought is that that initially goes to a lack of confidence, but it has to be deeper than that, because that is systemic from something else. Does it go back to the way in which we're taught in a authoritarian way of you're right or wrong? Probably, honestly, if it's such a widespread experience, it's complex and it's nuanced, but most of the time, whether we're juggling like social dynamics as a kid of, oh, if you are likely to express yourself and show confidence, like you're a threat to the crowd of people you go to school with because they're threatened. Like, oh, this person knows something. And it's like, even from a young age, we're grappling with this. Like, it makes me think of Taylor Swift. We were watching like an old CNN story of her, of when you are ahead of your time and you're confident in yourself as a kid, the girls at school aren't going to want to hang out with you. They're going to be intimidated by you. Like, think about how early like the cliques start in middle school, elementary school. I can think of third grade is when drama started for me, of girls being jealous and seeing something in you and wanting to not allow you to be in the circle. So imagine what's going on here. The girls who create the circle to keep you out of it, they're insecure of something that they see in you. Are you just being yourself? It seems like so often throughout society or throughout different ages, someone who is confident in themselves, is sure of themselves, is a threat to everyone else who is insecure. So what lessons does that teach us of I'm secure in myself, so I can't be a part of anything? Because what everyone a part of is this club of insecurity. So it's just, we think someone else knows better than us. And that just can't be that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I think Taylor Swift is a good example, because look at someone who was like a child and like was bullied, was told like, oh, you're weird for being you. She's a billionaire artist. Clearly, like, she was onto something. And from a very early age, she was connected to herself. She just stayed on that path. She is nothing but her. And that's why everyone loves her music. And if that's not an example of what it means to know yourself and to look to yourself and no one else, like, that is like such a good lesson. And I think the music industry can be one where it's more obvious to stick to yourself, to listen to yourself. But it can also be quite the opposite, because there's all of these people who are in your face saying, you need to be that. You need to be that star. We need to make you this. We need to make you that. And I guess I take that back. It's like, in no industry is it more easy than another to be yourself, because it all starts from within. It all starts from something that has nothing to do with anything tangible. But it's an inner knowing of being able to tap into that and be comfortable being uncomfortable, being yourself.
I think this is probably a good part of the conversation to bring up. Okay, so we're talking about, it's so easy to want to compare ourselves to other people and really to struggle to find a steady ground to stand on within our own being. And wanting to validate that, yeah, that was really, really hard for me to get to the point where I was, and it's interesting, my mind wants to say confident. It's almost like I've become confident in knowing that there's no answer. So I guess you could argue that that's another belief that you're holding on to, but I feel like life is changing minute to minute, moment to moment. And it's interesting when you hear about references to history and facts or scientific facts. I remember listening to some podcasts where they were talking about how there's a lot of scientific discoveries that we are still holding on to that maybe no longer actually are reliable. And it's like, how many beliefs in society, think about how many beliefs in society that still hold a place, that we are still choosing to agree to, that literally hold no truth. Like, oh, racism, you're less valuable because of your skin color, which blows my mind every fucking time. That our species was able to literally feel that another being was less valuable because of their pigmentation or your sexuality. Or going back in time, like my grandparents were Italian immigrants. Like, they weren't even treated nicely. You realize, like, it was always about us trying to control other groups to make ourselves feel better. because we as a species feel like we're just insecure. We don't know what we're doing here. And perhaps it is that threat of existence. It's maybe that evolutionary threat of, I'm going to get attacked. Animals in the animal kingdom, you could quite literally get killed. That we are always trying to act like we are the ones who are more superior to keep ourselves safe. And what I was trying to say is that, yeah, like I used to say I'm really confident. I used to say I'm really, I feel more smart. I feel more confident. I feel more secure. But now it's like all of those words were just rooted in insecurities, the need to be confident. But now it's like, oh, no, I just trust myself that no matter what happens, I will be able to figure it out. And that's the difference, I think, in my experience.
So I have a couple of things to say. First being, I'm kind of laughing you brought this up because last night I was falling asleep and I was thinking about like someone asking the question of like, how are men and women different? Are they different or are they equal? And I was like, well, physiologically, women create life. So of course, like women are different than men. But I was kind of laughing. Like I was like, but which one's better? It's like fundamentally different. But it's like, what is better? Like why are we always fighting for something to be better? But it's because we need validation. It's funny how we always have bad or good as objective. As like it is quite literally correct that men are better than women. Or women are better than men. And it's like, wait, what? How do you even do that? It's like, what? To who? For what? It's like such a huge generalization, but it's like a belief, and like it takes just a society of everyone believing something for it to become quote unquote true in reality, because people bring that into reality by believing it. Even if in like true reality, it's totally irrelevant because we all create our own realities to live in based off our beliefs. But going back to what you were saying, like, first of all, I was just thinking like life gets really fun when you realize no one else has the answers. And the reason is because you don't have to abide by others' rules to get your validation and acceptance. Think about all the micro rules we follow. Think about all of the friendships that were based out of need, or all the relationships that have been based out of need, where you were never honest with someone, where you got your validation from these places. So you didn't want to rock the boat. Even deep down, you felt a certain way. And how that would impact you as a person, of how you want to live your life. It's like you start blaming those around you for how you're living your life because you can't take accountability because you get your validation from being accepted by others. And that's all predicated on the belief that others know better than me. So when you're able to let go that someone else knows better than me because they're dressed a little sharper, because they're wearing those new shoes I like, or because they have that job title, they must be better than me. It's like, what? Like when you can like laugh at that and like think of someone who takes that seriously, of thinking, oh, I'm better than you because this is my job title. Oh, I'm better than you because I have a family. I'm better than you because they're getting their value from those things. They don't realize that they too can look to themselves, because they aren't even looking to themselves if they're looking to get their validation from the things that they hold, carry, and create. So life just gets really interesting and fun when you realize no one knows anything, no one has more answers than you, and your validation and your value come from nothing other than it just is in existence. So if you can get behind that, you can be free.
And it's fascinating that I've observed on this journey of waking up and recognizing the illusion of, okay, we're on a planet, we're floating in space, I'm going to die. What is existence? What is this brain I have? What is this mind I have? How am I here? Questioning really my existence. There's certainly been times where I felt like I knew more than someone who hadn't done the work. And it was never maybe it was in a way to put someone else down. I think for me, I recognize in myself this like wanting to help other people, kind of wanting to save other people. and be there for other people. And look, I have some really great friends who hold the space and listen to me express myself. But that is all that they do. They hold the space so I can express myself. And they don't really respond to make me feel better. They just kind of have a conversation. And I've seen in myself times where I'm so caught up in an idea that, oh, this person is caught up in the illusion, or this person is like this. And therefore, I can't connect to them because they don't get it. Oh, this person doesn't get it. I need friends who get it. And I see how that's just another hierarchy of
not trusting yourself.
Yeah. And thinking that it matters whether I get it or not. Because what is there to get? Like, that gets in the way again of genuine connection, because ultimately everybody has the potential to heal and to wake up, but it's not the right or wrong thing to do. But there's been times where I've been like, what do you mean? Of course it's the right thing to do. Of course you have to live your life. Of course you have to heal and follow your passions and do all these things. And I still do feel that the way my life has changed has been so drastic. So naturally, I want other people to share in that. But I think that sentiment is short-sighted because it forgets that not everyone will have your experience. And all we ever have is our own experience. So I think things get a little dicey when we take our own experience and we become so confident that we know what's best for other people.
That was a statement right there. And think about how many teachers, therapists, people who we put in these roles on a pedestal, church clergy. Think about how there's all of these people in our life that have the thought, genuine thought, that what they have for us is better. That they're better than us because they get something. And that is it exactly. No matter what you believe in, what you identify yourself as, it's like as soon as you think that you understanding that belief that you have puts you at the top, and anyone who doesn't get that is below you, you've gone awry. Like there's just, that becomes problematic because it's almost like if you believe that you're better than someone because you have these understandings of whatever that may be, you're pitying the other person. You're looking down for the other person. You're feeling bad for them. And that's not genuine connection. And concepts and beliefs can be helpful, but they can also be really fucking not helpful. And they can stop and get in the way of you connecting with someone. And human connection is a true need. Without it, as an infant will die. The belief of something is not a need. It's an option. So, and I've definitely been there with like healing, podcasts, all this stuff where I've thought like, oh, like that person doesn't get this. Like, I don't want to talk to them. And it's like, psh, okay. Like calling myself out. It's like, I've thought that before. And it's like, well, you're missing the point then of just existing in harmony to think that you're any better than anyone else. As soon as you think you're better than anyone else, you got to check yourself because no one is better than anyone else. We only think that as a society because we've upheld the belief collectively that certain people are better than others because of X, Y, and Z reasons. They're all relative based off of the majority's beliefs. That's all. Like the power is truly in numbers of what people believe.
And it's like, if we're listening to thought, because ultimately, if you're sitting with somebody and you're facing them and you're having a conversation with them, but you're so caught up thinking about who you think they are or how they don't know things. First of all, we're listening to thought. And what have we learned? That those same thoughts can tell you that there's a bear in front of you chasing you, can tell you that you have cancer, can tell you the world's ending, can tell you all these lies. So why would we not recognize that, again, we are existing in thought? We're not existing in reality, here, in the moment.
Or like to bring identity into this, if you say become a new parent and you have an idea of what a parent should be, so you aren't genuine and authentic to how you just want to be, or you're working in a new job and you think you have to be a certain way. There obviously are like expectations people put on you, but ultimately that again is in thought most of the time. So it's interesting to think about when we're lost in a reality controlled by our thoughts, which are not based in reality of me touching my leg right now. Like those aren't in the same realities. That's Daisy's reality of self-creation of, oh, you're a mom now. You have to wear a certain shirt because that's just a silly example. But it's true. Like we as adults, like we think we age because we think we have to become something. Just because you have to pay your mortgage on time, just because you have to pay your rent and have a car bill and all of this stuff, doesn't mean that you also have to play a role of being boring and tired all the time. I've met 80-year-olds who seem full of life and have a spark in their eye because they're just being themselves. And it's tricky being a human being, existing with a bunch of responsibilities, because it is super easy to get lost in that thought, that virtual reality of your personal reality. And then you manifest that shit into your life and your back starts to hurt, starts to get tension headaches. And then you keep talking about it and all of your friends start to get the same thing too. And you think that this is a direct result of age. When in reality, it's just your virtual reality you've created. I don't know what the Joe Dispenza line is. You create your reality. But I guess I've just been thinking recently about how age is not connected to feeling miserable. It's like we have connected those two because we've all decided to agree these things. But it's like you don't have to agree and follow along with these things, going back to when no one knows the answers, when no one has the truths, you can truly look to yourself to redefine anything that you want. Like that's true innovation. Like anyone who's really innovated something, they've had to be confident enough to look to themselves. Like I love the John Mayer song, Walt Grace's Submarine Test, 1968, because it's the story of this guy who's trying to create something and everyone's laughing at him saying you can't create a submarine. And then he makes it to Japan from traveling under the waters. But it's just the sentiment of like, you have to believe in yourself. And I think the quickest way to believe in yourself is to realize that even if someone's convincing you that they know better than you, especially if someone's convincing you they know better than you, they don't know better than you. Like I truly believe the quickest way to have confidence and true conviction in what you're doing is to realize that no one else knows anything different or more. It's all relative in our experience. And for me, that makes me very excited because what a beautiful truth to set you free. No one knows more than you. And don't take that so literally. Like someone might know more history than you about a certain topic, but that's not what I mean. Like it's a knowing of being, of existing, and allowing yourself to do that.
Yeah, what I think it really comes down to is no one else has a greater capacity to feel more whole than you. Like, we can know things. Yeah, of course, I might have read up on these books and I can share that. And nothing's black and white. There's some benefit in I'm going to teach you what I've learned about how to do karate or how to ride a bike or how to start a podcast. But as soon as we attach knowledge to value, we start to think that value is something we can layer and achieve versus value just being something that already is. Something that you don't go out and get, something that you only go within to discover. So there are so many people out there I admire and who inspire me and who I really appreciate their works and their arts and their conversations that they offer. And that's why it's like while we all are connected, we also all are expressing our unique experiences in reality. We all have different life experiences, and we can share those and talk about those. But we don't have to make it a hierarchy, and we don't have to make it something we are comparing to get to a certain point. Because yeah, I left my job, started a podcast, and am following my dreams. But I still feel like shit sometimes. I still feel caught up in the inevitable pain of existence. And if you think that feeling whole is a matter of not feeling pain, or your experiences have made you less than other people because they were really hard to go through, what I've learned, it's really about owning your experiences and recognizing that no one else will ever know exactly what that was like for you. And by facing those truths and sitting with all the shit we avoid, for me, that's how I've gone closer to this inner knowing, by crying and healing and going towards the emotions that I've been trying to run away from. So in my experience, this sense of knowing in myself has come side by side with sitting through intense pain.
Well, yeah, you could say pain is the greatest teacher, the ultimate teacher, because pain is unforgiving, relentless, and true. It shatters the stories you create, which is painful. That's why they call it pain. But there's so much to be learned from it. And you're never going to start worshiping pain. I guess maybe that's masochism. But you're not going to mistake what pain is teaching you. Or you might. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're feeling pain and you're feeling it and you're facing it and you're accepting it and you're surrendering to it, it's not going to last forever. And you're going to learn something from it. And you're going to come out stronger, because it was only you who got you through that. It's only you who can dial down the pain you're feeling.
I think that's it. When you process your pain alone, you see what you could handle. You see that you can get through no matter what happens to you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like, when I look at like my experience on like the psychedelic mushroom trip, no one could help me. No one could save me. All I could do was let my body handle it. And we can talk to our body. Our body knows a lot. It's been around for billions of years of evolution, and I don't know the exact dates, but exact time, I mean. But our body is so smart. It is so intelligent. It has the answers. And the thing is, those answers cannot be translated to verbal words. They are beyond that. There is all kinds of stuff happening in our bodies all the time. It's why we got to slow down and listen to our body, because there's so much to be learned from slowing down and feeling through things without our brain, our mind, our thoughts getting in the way. Because our body knows what to do. If you watch nature, you know it knows what to do to keep going. There's no logical mind to get in the way. And no one in nature thinks that someone else knows more than it does. Everyone's just doing their own thing. And there's so much to be learned from that. There's so many lessons. So it's been a journey, this conversation. It's been fun threading this concept of no one knows more than you through a lot of different anecdotal experiences and more nuanced topics, because life is nuanced and there are several topics, and it's cool to maintain the same topic throughout all of that, because I learn from this. This is a good reminder. This topic has definitely been on my mind. It's been a huge lesson that I've been processing, and it's the most freeing thing to date that I've learned, because no one wants to be trapped in a cyclical thought that someone else is better than them or knows more than them. Because like you said, no one else has the propensity or the better ability to become more whole than us. And 99% of our problems are seemingly fixed once we feel whole and complete. And those problems that we still have that remain seem much more approachable to solve when we feel whole and complete. So I'm grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful for you, Sophie, for bringing it to the table, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you for chatting with me today on this topic, because it was really interesting, and I had no idea we were going to go here. Not at all what we planned to talk about, but sometimes you got to listen to your body, you know? It knows.
Yeah, I had no idea we're going to go down this route, but it was something I had been thinking about, and it felt really good to talk about it. I felt grounded, like kind of confined to this experience. I wasn't anywhere else. So thank you. Thank you to the listener for listening. And again, the book I was citing, it's Alan Watts' This Is It, Other Essays on Zen and Spiritual Experience. He can be kind of hard to read in the sense of like, you got to go slow in my experience, but I really, really like his work. So if you have any questions about books or just want to chat, DM us. We love to chat because we're all just human beings going through this experience on the same level playing field. With that being said, we hope you all have a nice weekend, and we will talk to you again on Tuesday.